all I listen to essentially is film scores. That's like 90% of what I listen to, and drives my wife nuts. But there's two tracks on the Seven soundtrack. One's called Wrath, and then one's called Linoleum. And those two I played on loop as I wrote, as I just started writing. So it's kind of funny you say that, but it's like also I wanted to do a seven was kind of like a launch pad for something I wanted to do. But I didn't want to kind of, replicate that type of style or whatnot. So I kind of think I brought my own little tech twist to it. I don't know if you watched my previous movie, but I'm kind of operating in a bit of a thematic sandbox of cautionary tales about technology. So I kind of wanted I'm genre jumping, kind of playing in that sandbox. So
Well, speaking of which, there's a scene about like influencer culture because you have the scene where the guy is filming inside a crime
mhm.
scene. Like idea of like exploiting tragedy for views. So was that
Mhm.
always in the script when you first wrote it?
Yeah, so there was a version of that in the script, and the great thing about making movies is stuff can change, and
Mm.
the version that in the script is it's much shorter. It was just an influencer kid's walking down the sidewalk, bumps into the lead character, and goes on his merry way. And the ending of the film kind of stays the same, kind of like setup payoff of the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
But the closer we got to um, filming, only actually a few days out, I did a quick rewrite, and I never do that because we're very prepared. When I work with the same crew a lot, and we kind of pride ourselves on being hyper prepared. So then you can you know improvise on if you need to and have a little fun. It made sense to make the change to the kid being in the house, kind of doing that more influencer type thing, just sign of the times kind of thing. And the actor we got, he's actually a director himself, David Ambrose. He's a local New Jersey indie director, and I just kind of persona casted him. I was like, this kid, or young man, is just perfect for this role, and we just threw him some lines, and he crushed it. So,
Yeah. It that like moment made me think of Logan Paul, the I don't know if you're aware of like the suicide video that he did, like
right.
2017.
I think I read about that. That was a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like what videos, like what is your experience with like videos online, like some of the most disturbing ones that you've seen?
hmm Well, I try not to look at that stuff just because, like, honestly, the essence of this movie, the theme is a lot about. It came from a place where, um, if you watch the movie, I feel like you could be like, oh, this movie's punching down in a way where it's like waving your finger about technology's evil, phones are evil, but honestly, genuinely, the film came from a place of anger towards myself because I have young kids, noticing how much the screens were kind of occupying my attention with young kids around, even with my wife. So the film was a lot of like, kind of like self catharsis in a way of like, I'm yelling at myself thematically in a sense, but I feel very strongly and passionately about the theme is something that everyone suffers from or deals with to some degree negatively. These screens have occupied our just our time in a very unhealthy manner. And I said, how can I wrap this into a fun, punchy genre film? So that's what we did. But yeah, kind of to circle back to the initial question, I think watching a lot of negative videos, I think this is my tinfoil hat conspiracy. I think we're actually force fed negativity on these apps, to kind of make everyone a bit irritable and angry, and the discourse is very toxic. And so I try to avoid that kind of stuff because I don't think it's good for us.
Well, because that kind of stuff like sells, right? And like this
Yeah,
disturbing
the
stuff.
old the old the old cliche of news: if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, unfortunately.
There was a tick, an article about TikTok being
hmm
literally like changing like our brain chemistry in terms of attention spans. So
Yeah,
with
yeah.
what?
The frontal lobe, I believe, is
Yeah,
shrinking. That I read that same study, and you can see it too. And like I said, the film, in a way, it's not. it's not the most subtle theme, I think, but intentionally so. It is a bit of a sledgehammer in a way that I feel like is me. I feel comfortable, um, kind of standing behind the fact that the film isn't very subtle in that regard because I feel like it's such an issue with something that just society in general. And I don't mind kind of being labeled as, oh, this film's kind of hitting you with a sledgehammer. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like I've said this a lot, but like in 2026, I feel like we need sledgehammers a lot of
Mhm.
the time. And horror
Yeah,
is just like a great vehicle to
yeah,
explore, you know, our
yeah,
fears and dangers
of
of
course.
society. So
Yeah, it's perfect. I remember talking with Brian, who's the lead actor. He's the detective who, the twist and all that stuff. And he also edits the movies. He's an incredible editor. And just talking about the kind of movies we want to make, because him and I have collaborated a lot on these. And it's just, I feel like genre and horror is just the best way to have something to say, but
mhm.
also have fun at the same time, not come across too preachy, to kind of slip themes in there that you genuinely believe that are they're important to you and to others. But just at the end of the day, movies, you want people to enjoy themselves. And if they can take something from it, that's just incredible. And that's kind of, the perfect combo is entertain, learn something, maybe reveal something about yourself for others that are kind of, we're just sitting there under the surface, but you just kind of need this piece of work to kind of like, oh my God, yeah, I'm on the phone or the laptop 24/7.
Yeah. This film also made me think a lot about corruption. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, like, if was that weighing like on your mind as well?
Corruption. Well, I think that is just kind of a symptom of current times. We live in a very cynical and corrupt, you know, world, and albeit nation at the moment. But um, corruption, itself was never on my mind, to be honest. This was more of just kind of in a way, my version of like we said in the beginning, a Fincher-esque style uh, crime thriller, done through the lens of how I kind of see the world. And my previous film, excuse me, Glass Eyes, was a zombie film seen through that same lens. And I'm enjoying, because I love movies so much. I'm enjoying jumping from genre to genre, kind of seeing what I can do with it and to kind of make it unique and my own.
Now, earlier I mentioned Dexter. I really could
Mm-hmm.
see this film as like even like a miniseries
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. No, it's so on. I mean, I do. There is a version of this already laid out that is, limited series or an anthology series, or it can even be a recurring series. That I'm really excited about. I really like the idea of this roving serial killer who is totally off the grid because he obviously has a technology complex. How can someone stay off the grid in this day and age? And then why is he targeting people who are just glued to the screens? I think there's a lot that can be done with that beyond this short film. So the film does, act as a bit of a proof of concept in that way.
Yeah. It would work so well on like Shutter or something.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shutter, are you watching?
Nice. Um,
Yeah,
so just kind of shift gears a little bit. I know you said that you played in NCAA and like pro ice hockey. So
yeah,
how
yeah.
does that like that's like such a such a switch to go
I
from
love
that
that.
to film.
I love that question. Thanks for asking that because it's like I think they are parallel. They're so different, right? You have the artist and the jock, right? They both have their cliches and their you can generalize both of them. Um, Growing up as an athlete, obsessed with movies, but I played ice hockey and I was fortunate enough to play at a pretty high level Division I college, and then I played a little bit in the minor pros, and then I then launched a hockey company. That's what I do for a living outside of this, and spent time working with the New Jersey Devils as an emergency backup. So that's always been my life. But anyone who's known me for my since the beginning knows films and movies have been my obsession. I wrote a film blog in college at University of Massachusetts that got public, I think on campus, and then also a couple of times in the Boston Globe got featured, which was pretty awesome at the time. And everyone's kind of like, "What are you doing? Why do you like movies so much? You're an athlete," and you kind of got pigeonholed that you had to be one or the other. And
Yeah.
then when I hit my early 30s, I don't mind outing my age. I'm older than that now, but when I hit my early 30s, I said I got to do something about this obsession, or else I'm going to regret it. So jumped into making movies, first acting, then I kind of transitioned to more writing and directing, which I feel like is more my strong suit. And the reason I like that you brought it up, because I feel like my experience as an athlete is the only reason why I could run the production from pre to filming to post, is
Yeah.
just because as a coach and an athlete, you're a team player. You have to operate as a leader. And I believe heavily in um, auteur is an important thing to have an idea and a vision to come through with it. You have to kind of protect that vision, but at the
Mhm.
same time, you can't be ignorant to the fact that you're only as good as everyone on your team. And as you can see, the film looks incredible. Our cinematographer Rick Cook,
Yeah.
the film, the score is incredible. John Hatch, acting Galway McCullough, Brian May, Daniel Buyos, David Ambrose, and then down to everyone below the line just crushed it. So being able to operate as a team in a high pressure situation, which film sets are, I think our film sets are fun, but there is an element of pressure, and you have to kind of navigate that and do your best to kind of put everyone in a position to do their best work. So without athletics and without being in environments of pressure and working as a team, I don't think I would have. I don't even know how I would begin to walk onto a film set and be like, all right, everyone look at me. This is what we're going to do. So,
Yeah. Now you mentioned the
mm-hmm.
pressure.
Mm-hmm.
What is like the hardest thing that you learned on a film set between your last film and this one?
Um, so what's funny is I always joke, and Brian's going to get sick of this. The biggest problem I ever occurred with a film is that our lead principal actor on my previous short uh, kind of didn't drop out, but said he couldn't start the day one because another gig conflicted. And we had to, in a 12-hour period, rearrange like an entire shoot schedule. Anyone who's made a movie knows that's a nightmare. But we were covered, and it's all good. I just like to tease him. On this one, I do think that because I like to prepare a lot, and I know Rick Cook, my brilliant cinematographer, also is down to prepare. And on this film, we brought in an assistant director, which I didn't have on the previous film, Tim Senovitis, who was essential. I mean, I can't speak enough for how well he did with just helping us organize everything leading into the shoot. So the actual shoot itself was pretty quick. Um, I don't think, as long as everyone's prepared, I don't think we need to do more than 3-4 takes for each setup. Obviously there are stipulations, but to kind of answer your question, the biggest issue we had was just some post stuff. Um, there's some minor VFX work that took a lot of finessing to get it right. Thankfully, we had a great visual effects artist, Dark Hoffman, who came on to help us out. So a lot of that kind of stuff in the post process was really the learning experience for us dealing with visual effects for the first time. Which, as you watch a movie, you're like, "What was a visual effect?" And there's a few actually. I guess that's the sign of a good visual effect. But yeah, that was probably the biggest thing for us. The shoot was great, and thankfully.
Yeah, I didn't notice any visual effects.
Yeah. Blood on the carpet was all
Okay.
digital. And then there's a moment where there's a police officer character who walks down the hall, and there's a moment where he flashes his shoulder badge, which for legal reasons we had to manipulate and blur out um, the actual precinct. So yeah, so those were the two things that were driving us nuts. But like I said, Dark, our VFX guy, did a wonderful job.
Yeah. Oh, now being someone who's so prepared, like how did your
Mm-hmm.
shot list, did it change like any like drastically or was it pretty much what you wanted?
So the blessing, I mean, any indie filmmaker is going to just laugh and agree on this, but the blessing is in every film I've done so far, key locations have been places I'm very familiar with. On the last film we did, it's a waterfront home of a close friend of ours, who was nice enough to let us use it. And then on this film, the house interior stuff was actually the house I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
So when you spend a lifetime in these spaces, you kind of just know what it's. I felt it was a challenge to kind of visually make it look cinematic because the house is just, naturally boring. And the previous film we did, what a lot of people liked about it is how gorgeous it looked because it was like a beat, waterfront house, gorgeous house. And it was a very slick looking movie. So this one's a lot darker and a little, more brooding. So it's like, how do you make that visually interesting? So luckily, we did some walkthroughs with the team and the AD, and we kind of got to a place to where we felt like, all right, this is the only setup for this shot, and we're going to do this. And we kind of, as far as I can remember, we shot last June, so coming up on a year. It was pretty seamless. I don't think we switched anything up majorly, other than the opening sequence I talked to you about with the teenager.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any part of you that felt maybe creatively like unfulfilled with just being an athlete
Mm-hmm.
that you wanted to do this filmmaking?
That's a really good question. We're getting deep now. I like this. Um, yes, yes. I always wanted to do something with movies, and I call it like, my joke is with my fellow creatives, like a healthy delusion, right? Healthy delusion is, I like to call it, making movies, and at any level, whether it's, picking up a cell phone and doing it with your buddies, or actually hiring a crew to work with you, and then if you're ever lucky enough to work at the highest level. um, it's a bit of a delusional fantasy because it's the chances are so slim that
Mhm.
it can happen. But um, where the healthy comes in, if you start really low, like low budget, no money, you make something, someone notices something's interesting about it, then all right, you take baby steps. Then the next movie you hire someone else, and you keep taking baby steps. And if you feel like the work keeps improving, that delusion isn't so, unhealthy. It becomes healthy. So that's how we feel, or that's how I felt, starting out. I said, I just feel like I can do this because I love movies. I've watched them my entire life obsessively. I've always studied filmmakers more so than actors or anything else. So I always felt like deep down I could do it. And being able to kind of see that through and get to this point has been pretty amazing for me, and just the people I get to work with.
Well, I mean, you got into Panic Fest, so people in the
Yeah,
industry are, noticing what you're
yeah.
doing. So,
That was a thrill. That was a thrill. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by that acceptance because, as you know, the film is kind of horror adjacent. It's not traditional horror.
yeah.
It doesn't necessarily fit into the as a curator, I can understand why a horror fest would be like, we might like this, but it's lacking the shock value of, a lot of modern horror that's very slick and violent and, satirical, all that kind of stuff. This movie is a little bit more, like I said, a little bit more meditative, a little more brooding, and doesn't kind of fit into that lane of traditional horror. So when we got that acceptance, I was pleasantly surprised, and I can't thank them enough for kind of giving the film a shot to be a part of this program. So.
Now, you said that you were like always been obsessed with movies. I know a lot of
Mm-hmm,
filmmakers experiment with like filming their own stuff as a kids or
mm-hmm,
teenagers. Was that
mm-hmm.
something that you did?
Yeah, so in high school, we had a media class, that you kind of made movies on your VHS camcorder of your parents, and like the first available QuickTime editing software came out. It's very, very lo-fi stuff. But yeah, I made music videos. I made short films with my buddies. I wish I still had them. They're probably terrible. In fact, they are terrible, but I can't find them for the life of me. I'm really upset. But yeah, it was always there. And then, when hockey became a little more serious and going off to college, and after college, it just, the whole movie thing kind of disappeared for a little while. I was still obsessed with movies, still watch movies, all that stuff, and still daydreamed about maybe doing it one day. But yeah, it's always been there since the beginning in terms of the actual making of it.
Do you regret not like pursuing it like then as more of a serious career?
Of course, yes and no, because there's a caveat. Um, it happened. I'm a believer that like things happen when they're supposed to happen because thematically speaking, I don't think I make a movie like Glass Eyes, my previous one, or like The Scene, this one. I don't think I was capable of making a movie like that when I was 25. I really don't. I think I would have been going after the wrong things, focusing on you know, I don't know. I don't think I would have been capable or ready to write and direct a movie like these two. So I think it's just there are elements. Yes, I wish I had more time. You know what I mean? I wish I had more time to keep pursuing this to see where it goes. But at the same time, I think I'm just right exactly where I was supposed to be. And I've always talked, I talk to my wife about this stuff. It's like if my legacy is just, a half dozen really well made cinematic shorts that all kind of fit in a similar theme that just exist online, then I mean I can die a happy man, because it's like how many people actually get to get up off the couch and do this stuff. So, obviously you want something bigger to come across, but I think I'm pretty happy where I am. So
Other I had another interview earlier today where we were talking about death and kind of letting
mm,
go. And there's this
mm,
idea that you live as long as the last person who remembers you. So do you think
mm,
so like making these like films, do you think in that terms like when you die you'll have these films and like immortalized?
yeah, I think I think anyone who works in the arts, painting, photography, music, um, filmmaking, I think there is an element. I think we all have that deep desire to kind of never leave this earth, right? It's just a natural humanistic thing that we fear death, and what's our legacy, what's our imprint. So I think we all deep down have that sort of just I don't even know if I'd call it a fear, just yearning to just leave something worthwhile after your time. So I think, of course, there's an element of that for me. I don't think I spend too much time actively thinking about that, but I would be pretty certain that that's existing somewhere in my subconscious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just to kind of wrap up, I'm kind of curious
Mm-hmm.
because this film is like you yelling at yourself about tech. Like, as a parent, how do
Mm-hmm.
you bring that to like what you teach your kids?
So I mean, pretty obvious. We're going to be no iPads at the dinner table. We limit television and screen time because I'd be a total hypocrite if I said I wouldn't. My kids can't watch TV or watch hours of movies because that's what I did, and that's
Mhm.
why I feel like my imagination was nourished when I was growing up because I was able to sneak into the basement with 500 VHS tapes and just one after another. So when they're very young, we're limiting that kind of stuff. But and I do think we're going to limit the social media aspect on cell phones and that kind of stuff to a certain age. And I have a lot of faith in younger generations. I think you're kind of starting to see it a little bit that they're kind of getting sick of the brain rot of it all. But um, I we're not going to let them be raised by a screen. But when I think they are willing and able and express any sort of interest in movies or filmmaking and television, then I'm going to shepherd them as best I can to
Yeah,
really kind of appreciate what it is. So,
it's I'm a millennial, so
mm-hmm.
it's really
So am
bizarre.
I.
It's really bizarre to see generations that know nothing else. They
Yeah,
know nothing else besides iPhones and screens and social media. So
it's pretty wild that you and I were able to just kind of pick up a landline and call somebody. Um, or just remember the old school pay-per-view box. I used to be obsessed with that gray pay-per-view box,
I'm
and like
calling
you just
a movie theater to find out like
yeah,
times
and
to
it's just like the automated things playing
yeah
the times, right? Yeah,
yeah
yeah. Oh yeah, good
yeah
time.
yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, especially now with like online bullying and like having social
Hmm.
media and being in high school. It's like I can't imagine that being like a part of our
Yeah.
experience growing up.
Yeah, it's very unfair what the younger generations have to deal with because growing up, it's only human to make mistakes and do or say something you regret. And you know, for us, we didn't have that frozen in time, and and played on a loop. There's an actual very specific line in the scene that kind of hits upon this, where it's just like, when something's recorded or documented that someone regrets, but also should should be able to have the chance to kind of redeem themselves and become a better person on the other side. That thing's just going to keep playing and over and over and over again. It's just, and then how is that good for us? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, that's something I kind of, I have a lot of empathy for the younger generations with that. But yeah.
Yeah, like my experience, like our experience, like my first uh like experience with social media was like Facebook in the early days where you had to be in
Hmm.
college with a college email
Yeah.
to have it. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
glad that, some of the things that you do in college, I'm so glad
Hmm.
that it was pre-iPhone. So there's no like
Yeah.
all there is left of that time of my life is like grainy video or grainy
Hmm.
photos, obviously taken on like a Motorola or a
Yeah.
Nokia phone. So yeah, it's interesting like how exponentially technology has kind of like
Yeah.
advanced in the past 26 years.
Yeah. Now, do you mind if I just, I don't, you can tell us when we have to wrap up, but if I can flip this on you for a second,
Yeah.
how have you been enjoying Panic Fest so far? How have you been consuming it? Has it been like, because I know our film's playing virtually on Monday, in the short films 4 block at 6 p.m. How are you consuming, like, say, what's playing theatrically? Do they send you a screener for
And
this stuff?
most of them they do.
Okay, cool.
Um, yeah.
And do you have any? Do you want to give a shout out to any that so far that you've been like, ah, that's awesome.
And there's another short called Forever Liam that
Hmm.
I was completely like, I was like, holy shit! Like this
Hmm.
film is excellent.
Cool. I'm gonna check that out.
And then also there's Creature of the Pines, which is found footage. If you
Hmm.
like that style,
Hmm.
again, I was completely blown away by it.
So I actually, I hate to admit this, and I said this once on a panel when I was at a horror fest once. Horror scares me. I hate jump scares. Every time we play at a festival with other horror movies, it's like I'm anxious. I'm covering my eyes. Like I just can't handle jump scares. So it's kind of, I find that ironic.